and technology we used to address our cognitive task. Oh, maybe. Okay, so the first on understanding digital behaviors to promote well-being, and I would like to introduce a project called MABLE. MABLE is short for Mobile Application for Behavioral Learning and Education. And the cognitive task here is to help children establish positive smart usage device habits. So here, it started with when my older kid was about this age, about 2 or 3 years old. Before being a parent, I was adamant on not showing any, exposing any digital media to my kid until she was in elementary school whatsoever. But it didn't work out. By the age of 2, I was showing her a smart device. And I'm sure you were not, you are familiar with kids in restaurants watching smart devices, and they're really quiet. And by the time they want to leave the restaurant, when the parent takes away the phone, they're throwing tantrums saying they want to watch more of these devices. So I thought, well, so we know it's better to have offline interaction with the children, but it's not always easy. So then if we cannot live without these smart devices, then can we help children at least establish a positive usage habit so that we can take advantage of these smart devices and also establish good habits for these children? This was done in 2018, a survey by an agency in Korea. I think maybe probably the numbers might be slightly higher in Korea than in the US because a lot more prevalent use of smart devices in Korea. But still, it gets the message across. And we know that smart devices by toddlers and young children can have a lot of positive impacts on education, communication, even gaining some desirable habits. But it's the excessive use that becomes a problem for anything. So the excessive use can potentially have negative effects, and some of it can have negative effects on their developmental progress and efficiency in coordination, muscle movement, and some deficiency in social behavior as well. In my lunch earlier today, one of the students told me some kids are actually developing another bone because they're using a lot of another fragment. So I'm not sure if that's true, but I think I can believe it. So here in Korea, this was 5 years ago, 19.1% of the children were diagnosed with smartphone overusage. That's actually higher than adults being diagnosed with smartphone overusage, which is at 17%. So the numbers are alarming. So we wanted to do something about it. And to address the concern for smart device overusage for children, and various app-based parental mediation methods have been proposed. And here are some examples from the CHI conference. So to guide children to build appropriate and constructive usage habits, researchers have proposed a lot of applications that help children plan out what they're watching so that they know when to stop, plan out some good content so that it's not doing anything detrimental to their habits. But when we started this project, many of the existing systems helps children with regulating media usage. But what our research group was interested in was whether the users, the end users, the children in this case, have an understanding of the cause and effect relationship when watching media. So rather than telling the kids, okay, it's been 30 minutes, you have to stop watching, we wanted the kids to understand at their cognitive level that watching excessive, being exposed to excessive media content is not that great of a thing to do. So what we did was we built a system called MABLE. And in this system, the parent and the child, well, mostly since these are kids with an average age of 4 years old, so about 48 months. So the kids said the parents set a desirable rule, smart media watching rules for the kids. So it can be like 30 minutes for some parents. For some parents, it could be 2 episodes per day. And once that allotted time is reached, then the parent selects, uses this Mabel to give feedback to the children if they abide with the preset rules. So let's say 30 minutes, and at 30 minutes, the parent would show children this Mabel device. And if the kids say, okay, it's been 30 minutes, so I'll stop watching without throwing tantrums, then the parent would give positive feedback using augmented reality. So the parents have the device and a hand puppet. So if you lay your smartphone over this hand puppet, and a positive response from this puppet would be like a heart-eyed with saying, wow, thank you. Thank you for keeping the promise, something like that. And for the negative feedback, when the kid wants to keep watching the device, it'll be like the monkey is sad. It likes it when you keep the promise. So a feedback that a child could understand at his or her level of understanding. So it's not about, okay, if you watch too much smartphone, too much media, you'll get a turtleneck, your posture would change, or it'll be, you might get a brain damage. That stuff does not come through the kid, right? But if the kid understands, well, you made a promise with this monkey puppet, and if you keep the promise, the monkey would be happy, the puppet would be happy. If not, the monkey would not be so happy. And at that level, the children understand that it's a promise. It's good to keep the promise, and they'll abide more with the rules, was our hypothesis. And so because it's important to make a connection with the puppet, because if it's just any puppet, the children would not care as much of keeping the promise. So we gave the children a choice of multiple puppets, and they got to name the puppets and interact with the puppets, so to form some type of a relationship at the beginning of the experiment. Why augmented reality? Well, first of all, it's attractive. It's shown to be attractive and immersive with children at this age. And also, it can make the cause and effect relationship visible at the cognitive level that the children can understand. And that's the main reason we chose augmented reality. And so this was a 2-week-long experiment with about 36 children. And at the beginning of the meeting, we assessed their current usage of smartphone, and we also observed how well they played with the puppet, and they chose the puppet. And every day for the 2 weeks, we sent a morning reminder saying that please send us feedback in the evening, and that in the evening, the parent would actually send us a feedback on how the children did, like how much time they spent on watching the smart media, and when the time came to end the watching, did they throw tantrums, or were they okay with just stopping at the promised time? And at the end of the 2 weeks, we had a follow-up interview, and we also ran the smartphone scale again to compare the pre and post. And okay, it worked. And we actually saw a higher engagement rate, and comparing AR and non-AR condition. So in the AR condition, there was higher engagement. So children were more happy to see the monkey's reaction. Oh, and in the non-AR condition, we actually gave the exactly same feedback, but without the VR. So in this case, the parents had to act out the puppets. So if the children kept the promise, the parent would act out saying, "Oh, you did a good job," or "Oh, you didn't really do a good job. Let's try better next time," something like that. So when comparing these two conditions, using AR led to better engagement, better rule compliance of the rule they set, a lower rate of problematic behavior in throwing tantrums, and also lower behavioral dependence. So here are some of the quotes from this experiment was like, my child became more aware of the time we promised to use. For instance, my child asked me, Mom, have I used up my 30 minutes? Which is a really positive thing because now we're talking at the child's cognitive level rather than just saying, okay, it's been 30 minutes, you have to stop. Now the child is more aware of this rule and also the time. And another quote shows that we used to have a hard time whenever it's time to stop. Now he does not throw tantrums, and the child loves it when the puppet smiles. So some of the positive feedback. And not only it was effective in terms of these positive behavioral patterns, the children, the parents also said the parents in the non-AR condition said it's really hard to act out the puppet actually, but in the AR condition, parents didn't have to do that. So there were good things that came out of using the AR as well. And although this seems really simple, it worked well. So some of the parents, although we didn't ask them, used this system to correct for other types of behavior that they wanted their children to fix. So for example, brushing their teeth. So when it's time to go to bed, children, the parents would use this as a feedback mechanism to, if you brush your teeth, you can see that this monkey would be happy. I actually after hearing that, I actually used this on my own child. My children, my older daughter would not sit for dinner, she would just like run around. So I told her, if you sit well, like she had a rabbit, this rabbit would be really happy, and she actually complied with the rule better. So very simple, but effective at the children's cognitive level. And so as a next phase of Mabel, okay, we saw that, okay, we can bring down the rule. We can use technology to make children understand that there's a rule that's good to abide by. But at the same time, after using Mabel, there's more time to do something else, right? But the reason that the parents show show media to begin with is because sometimes the parents want some free time or have to do something and want to give children something to do. That's why they hand off the media or something. But with Mabel, okay, it's good that there's decreased free time, but what are you going to have the children do in their free time? And we explored methods for promoting offline, alternative, and leisure activities that children could do in this second phase of the Mabel project. And again, we did not want to do this in an oppressive way, since children, alternative activities, doing offline alternative activities have been suggested in lieu of excess screen time. However, children still prefer media over leisure activity, and we don't want to do this, enforce the children in engaging in offline activities. They're not going to be happy if we do that. So we were thinking maybe we could use our AR again to aid with the smooth transition between the real environment actually between the virtual environment where they're watching media to the real environment, so offline activities like origami or puzzles or coloring. And our hypothesis is founded on Milgram's VR continuum, where there's a real offline and virtual environment is not, it's a continuum of mixed reality, where in the real environment, there's no mixed reality, but there are spaces in between. So to support us, so going from virtual environment right to real environment can be hard. So we wanted to use VR to support a smooth transition from the virtual environment to the real environment. And the way we did that was to have children play virtual reality or AR hide and seek. So after children watch their videos online, when the allotted time is up, like when the 30 minutes is up, there's an app would pop up saying, do you want to play hide and seek with me? And there's this character, Kokomon, who comes up, and the background you can see is actually the home of where the child is staying in. So it can be played anywhere since it's AR. If you're in a classroom, you can play it in a classroom or in the park. This Kokomon character pops up, and the child would play hide and seek, AR hide and seek with this character. And after playing hide and seek, if you see the middle row of Mabel AR leisure condition, the Kokomon character suggests some of the offline activities. So saying, it was really fun playing hide and seek with you. Here are some of the offline activities that we could do. Would you like to play it with me? And we provided the group with offline activities that involve this character. So you can see there's a puzzle, there's a coloring book, there's an origami, and a book, and a little puppet that the children could use to engage in offline activities. And in the no AR condition, the participants are still encouraged to play with these activities after playing hide and seek, but the parent actually plays hide and seek with the doll, and there's no VR. So that smooth transition between the offline and the online is not present. And we also have another condition where we're still using AR, but we're not suggesting, Kokomon is not suggesting the offline leisure activities. After playing hide and seek, just says goodbye and it turns off. And the parent can then have an option to say, here are some of the offline activities we could do. Do you want to play with puzzle, but with the same character, of course, or do coloring books and so on. And again, this was done over a period of 2 weeks. With about 40 children. And here's what we found. When we compared the non-AR condition to the AR condition, so this was, non-AR condition was parents playing hide and seek with the physical doll, and AR condition was that continuum. And we found that there is a significant difference in the transition rate, meaning the children, when transitioning to offline activities, more children engaged in offline activities without that much resistance, and they would continue playing offline activities. But actually, there was not much difference in rule compliance, problematic behavior, or behavioral dependence. And here's a quote from a parent. So she said, I think Mabel can be regarded as a media content, Mabel being that virtual hide and seek program. And since children have many interests in using media content, transitioning their behavior by using media was an effective method rather than just saying you should stop watching with words. So finding that was consistent with our initial hypothesis. We also compared the leisure with the non-leisure. So we're still using AR here to play hide and seek. But we saw more difference between these conditions. So there was a difference in transition rate. So when Kokomon at the end suggests the leisure activities, which is a very minor thing to do, right? But still, we saw a difference in the transition rate. Children were actually more rule compliant, and there was lower problematic behavior and behavioral dependence. And you can see from the quote, since the process of stopping became a game-like activity, the child enjoys the stopping process now. So the process of going from jumping from online activity to offline activity is smoother. So the child enjoys the process. And in the condition where there was non-leisure, so they play hide and seek and Kokomon just says goodbye, the parent said, the child knows that she has to stop using the smartphone when the character appears. So she said, I hate the character. So it's not just about using the AR. It's the role of AR is to actually make that smooth transition for the child so that the children understands that, going offline doesn't mean your leisure is over. It's just a different medium, but you're still gonna have fun. That was the reason. Yes. Oh, okay. So that was one of my projects from the first agenda of supporting well-being. And I'm going to move on to the second agenda. The second agenda my second agenda is building technology to support learning, education. And here, I'd like to talk about, again, one of my projects called MASK, and it's short for Mathematical Agent that Facilitates Student Knowledge. So in this project, the main cognitive task that I got the screenshots for here are we want to support students' problem-solving processes when they're solving math problems. And although a bulk of the projects here were done with younger children in preschool and also early elementary school. It's not, our focus is not just on younger kids, but focus is on helping students with these math problem solving skills. And it's just not about helping students to achieve a high score or get a correct answer, but it's to help students understand the steps and the logic behind solving a math problem. For example, let's say a student is solving a math word problem as shown in the screen. So it's a fairly straightforward word problem saying one number is 8 more than twice another and their sum is 20. What are the numbers? And to solve this problem, a computer should be able to first generate an answer to this problem. Well, the computer should know how to solve that problem first, right? And then if the computer can generate the problem, it can also help with the student's problem-solving process if the student is having trouble solving that kind of a problem. So in our first research, we wanted to build a model that can automatically solve math word problems with our end goal of building a system that can support students' problem-solving process. And when we start this, the text is not aligned, but so when we first started this research, which was about 5 years ago, there was a pretty big gap in performance between a purely trained deep neural model and a machine learning model that uses handcrafted features. And the gap was about 40%, so that's a big difference in terms of performance. There could be many reasons to that, but one of the reasons we thought this was happening is because in a lot of domains like education, the amount of training data is limited. For example, if you want to train a deep learning model to solve that kind of a problem, the maximum we could get was about like 500 problems at that point, because it's not just, they don't just have to be word problems, but they have to be problems involving 2 variables and simple arithmetic equations. So there's a limit on the variation. And to get the deep learning models to work better than the older machine learning algorithms, then you need a lot more data than 500, or actually we went up to 2,000, but 2,000 is still not a big number. So we were thinking, what can we do to build a deep neural model with not so much data in the thousands, but still have a performance that matches a traditional machine learning model that uses handcrafted features. So that was the problem that we were trying to solve. And to address this, we went back to how humans solve math word problems. And this is work by Usiskin in 1999. And he laid out how humans solve mathematical problem solving, and what other skills that they use when solving math problems. And these are the 4 skills that I won't go into details, but we found that the existing deep learning models were not really making use of rule number 3 and rule number 4, which are commonly used by humans to solve math word problems. So then we thought, okay, if we can build this structure in deep learning model, maybe the model can do as well as the traditional machine learning models without increasing data. And that's what we did. And so for each of number 3 and 4, we found issues related with it in the current architecture. So in the current pure deep learning models with 44% accuracy, we saw that there was an issue of expression fragmentation where the expressions that are used in solving the math word problems were fragmented, so they're not stuck together. And information about the relationship between operators and operand are lost. So simply, what we did here was to have a new unit of input and change the size of the input so that the expressions and the operands are grouped together so that information is not lost. And for the number 4 solution, we saw that contextual information of a number is lost because there's no link between a number and a variable. So what we did is simply create a link. We called it operand context pointers, so that the system, the deep learning model, could refer back to where the number came from. And it's a very simple thing to do, just a matter of inserting a pointer. And here's what it looks like after the fact. And yeah. So, not surprisingly, after we incorporated those 2 types of math problem skills by human into the deep learning model, we saw an increase in the models across all of the 3 existing data set of math word problem solving. So from the 44%, it went up to 81%. So it's fairly comparable. There were some of other data set that were harder, that had lower baseline with machine learning models, but we did better. Or equally better when using our suggested system that incorporates humans' math problem skills. So, we also did an ablation study to test if each of the strategy was actually contributing to the increase in performance, and it did. And recall that our original goal was not just in getting higher performance, but we wanted to help students solve math word problems when they're having problems. So we wanted to make sure our computers actually solving, or are the models that we built, the deep learning models that we built, are solving the problems as the way humans do, so that it can be helpful to students. So in this follow-up study, what the deep learning model does is still a black box. So what we did here is we generated explanations. We asked the deep learning model to generate explanations to make sure that the model understands what each of the numbers mean in the problem, or what each of the variables mean in the problem. So things like, if there's a problem like this, one drives to work, he averages 22 miles per hour, 32 miles per hour when coming back, and the total travel time is 2 hours. We wanted to see if, in addition to generating the equations to solving the problems, can it generate explanations about these variables and numbers that are in the problem? So for instance, if we give 22, the model should be able to spit out. The 22 is the speed for driving to work, and the 32 is the speed to returning home, and 2.2 hours is the time for total travel. And if the deep learning model can do this explanation step with reasonable accuracy, then we could use it to scaffold students' problem-solving steps, was what our goal was. And we found that it was not generating the explanation as well. We wanted better explanations to be generated, but it was not doing as good of a work compared to the accuracy. So currently, we are still working on that part to see how we could improve the explanation generation part so that it could be used in student problem solving process. And we think maybe we could use some of the large language models as a tool to paraphrase some of the problems so that it's easier for the computer to understand and generate these explanations. But the student does not necessarily have to use the LLM to solve the problems, because we still want the students to think about what these numbers mean, how to generate equations. So without impacting the student's ability to learn, can we use LLM models just on the machine learn the deep neural model side, so that the performance can match what the human, not match, but become close to what the human tutor can do, is the goal here. And I don't have a finished story. It's still an ongoing project. Oh, and there was more. Here's another work, and it's my final work that I'd like to present. And here's another work that started with the goal of supporting students' problem-solving process when solving math word problems. And here, it's a math game that children play on a tablet device. So you can see that there's a sequence of numbers, and the student has to drag a number that fits that sequence. And our goal was to see, without invasive, like additional tests, can we just get the log from student interactions and see when students are experiencing difficulty when they're solving a problem, just by looking at the logs? Because the logs are what's being collected anyways, and if we can infer student difficulty from that, then we can intervene to help the students. So this was, I summarized the goals here as supporting students' problem-solving process by detecting PSD, as in psychological state of decision difficulty, is what it is. So when I refer to PSD, it means mental state when a student experiences difficulty between making choices between making multiple options. And this is not from the literature on education, but it's from the business, actually. When people have difficulty making choices, they experience PSD, and we thought we could also apply it to situations when students are trying to decide what numbers to put, what the answer would be in solving math problems. And in this decision-making context, PSD has been inferred by using geometrical features of trajectories that people leave when they're using programs. So, and PSD is a mental state that people face when they have to make a decisions, but they're unsure of the decision itself. For example, in the context of gambling or consumers' choice, when they have to make A or a B choice, then they're faced with these difficulties. And since these in the decision-making context, these features have been used to infer PSDs, we thought, well, in the educational context, we could also probably try the same thing. And if we could infer students this decision-making difficulty. And so we applied to this educational context. Specifically, we wanted to examine whether students are engaged in PSDs by using geometric features of the trajectories. So when they're solving these problems, they leave traces of their fingerprints. And from that point, we could infer the PSDs. And we like this approach because they're both cost-effective in that we don't need additional tests, or we don't need anything more extra to do by using this, and also non-invasive. We're not asking them to wear additional devices that measures the heart rate or anything like that. So if we could do that, this would be wonderful. So we calculated 8 geometric features of the trajectories. So these are the 8 that we looked at. So something like when is the start point and when is the end point of a trajectory? And is the trajectory straight or is it bent? So that would imply, if you know the answer, the student will probably go directly to the answer. If the student hesitates, probably might want to wave around. We also wanted to see the number of flips. So again, going straight as opposed to trying to decide where to go. And the starting and the end points and those data. were collected from 187 students aged 7 to 10. Now, we didn't collect this data for this purpose only, obviously, because there were so many students involved. It was already collected when students were using this particular program called Todo Math. So we already had the data, and we had about 97,000 of the logs, and we analyzed them using big data analysis method. And the first thing we did here was to see if we could group these features into different groups to try to understand what's happening with these actions. So we did exploratory factor analysis, and these features were grouped into two groups. The two groups, one group, we looked at how the features were grouped, and we also looked at the literature to see if we could interpret these features. And one of the group was named conflict, and the other one was named uncertainty. So conflict occurs. So to better understand the meaning of these two PSDs, we looked at the literature on decision making, and from the papers, we found that the conflict occurs when a person is concerned about the result of the decision making. And decision conflict arises when a reward or penalty is expected. So when the student gets the answer correctly, and the student can get to move on to the next step to get a reward or just see the next problem, then that's when a conflict might occur if the student doesn't know the answer. And the other aspect is uncertainty. So this is when the student is really having a difficulty about what the next step should be. So confusion is involved in this step. So that's where you see the flips about the confusion. So we grouped these two into the two groups to try to make sense of them. And after grouping them, then our next step was to see, can we use these two types of PSD as features in machine learning models to see if we can predict students' guessing behaviors or learning behaviors better? So then that means if we can use these PSDs to predict guessing behavior or learning behavior better, then that means we could collect them and use them as an indicator for these different types of learning behaviors, right? So guessing behavior, for those of you who are not familiar, I put a definition here, is when a student is trying to solve a problem without investing the learning effort, but just using the system straight. So in the example earlier, a guessing behavior of this might be just inputting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just guessing without learning. That's a guessing behavior. So we use machine learning models to see if PSD can be used to predict guessing behavior and learning better. And thankfully, it did. But before that, we also saw the correlation between the PSD and the students' guessing behavior. And we saw that there were negative correlations of guessing. That means if the students were involved in more amount of conflict or uncertainty, then there was less guessing behavior, and also positive correlations with learning achievement. Actually, I think that's backwards. Yeah, learning achievement or guessing behavior is positive. Yes, it's backward. The graph and the text are backwards. And when we ran different models using these PSDs, I'm just showing the best performing model here, but we did run several models. And we saw that the prediction error was lower when compared to the baseline model that did not use these two PSDs. So we could see that there's something that we are capturing, we were able to capture some things using these student trajectories in predicting students' guessing or learning behavior. Okay. So I introduced about 4 different sets of projects today, but what I want to emphasize is we always start in our lab, we always start with the interest in humans. In particular, what are the cognitive aspects that we want to understand about humans? Whether it being children trying to understand what, helping children to understand the rule-setting behaviors, or whether it being students trying to solve math word problems. The key interest starts with cognitive aspects of humans. And then as a next step, we only look at what type of data should we look at. Can it be just experimental data that's relatively small in amount, or should we look at big data, something like logs, to address this concern? And should it be technology, not necessarily AI technology, but it could be AR technology or simple computing methods that systems that we build, or should it be deep learning models, AI models that we built to address this cognitive aspects. And we're just using that as a tool. And in my title today, I put in parentheses big and AI in parentheses because of this reason. It's not, it's less of a concern whether we're using data or big data or technology or AI technology, because they're being used as a tool. And the key interest is in trying to help humans and understand human needs and cognitive aspects. And I would like to thank also some of my students who helped me with these projects. I actually have more students, but our webpage was down, so I couldn't get their pictures up. But these are some of the ones that were saved in my hard drive. Yeah, so thank you for listening to my talk.
Thank you, Hajin, for the great talk. Any questions from the audience? Yes.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for your talk. It's really interesting to hear all your work that you presented today. I'm actually curious, since education norms and how young children are taught is different across cultures and different across countries, I'm curious, based on your current research or research that you presented today, do you think the results might have been completely different? Or would you have built a completely different tool if it were in a different setting?
Great question. So some of the projects probably yes, but for the project that I presented today, the main cognitive aspect that we were focusing on was, can we use technology, in this case, augmented reality, to make the cause and effect relationship visible to the child? And this aspect, I think, would probably work with US children, in addition to what we did experiments in Korea. So in addition to the Korean children, the tool, using AR as a tool to make the cause and effect relationship visible would probably work in this case, but I wouldn't say that for some of the other tools. Yeah. Yes.
How does the work that you do in education compare to students or children's imagination? Because I think of when I was a kid and my grandma was forcing us to go outside, away from technology. I had no other choice but to try to use my imagination in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So how does, in your opinion, and maybe it's probably hard to get data on this,
Mm-hmm.
but how does artificial intelligence, AR, all of this stuff relate to kids' imagination? If that makes sense.
Right, as you said, I don't have data, so I'm speculating at this point. But I can see your concern where you're saying by offering all. So when I started this experiment, when I was looking for participants for the AR experiments with the kids, some of the parents were concerned. Well, my children were only watching smart devices twice a week, but by participating in this experiment, are you now forcing my kid to watch smart devices every day? That was one of the, I think the concern relates to what you're saying. That's definitely not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is use technology as a tool so that we can, so there's good side of using smart devices and also bad side of using devices. And I think the bad side kicks in when the usage becomes excessive. So yes, it's good to encourage the kids to go play outside. But also there are some benefits of using smart devices in this day and age. So I think the balancing problem is good. For example, my older kid, it came to US 2 years ago for a year to pick up the English language. And we went back to Korea. And because she's not using the language, she begins to forget the language. So what I ended up doing, although I didn't want to, was show her TV programs every day for 30 minutes English so that she would not forget the language. But there's benefits to using smart devices and is in that practicing a foreign language. And I'm sure there are multiple other benefits in using smart devices to a certain extent. So there should be a balance. And in this project, my goal was not to have children use more of the smart media, but prevent them from having excessive usage of the media. Yeah.
How would you define excessive or non-excessive usage?
It depends on so I would not want to define it, but what I used was there was a survey made, there was a survey by Korean Information Agency in Korea. They so the experts on that front who study addiction on smartphones and smart media devices made a survey. So that's what I use. So I wouldn't define it, but I would refer to the experts on that area in terms of overusage and addiction.
Yeah, I actually have a question. So I think your emphasis on understanding human cognitive aspects is very important and very interesting. The particular angle is very interesting. Could you elaborate more on how the understanding of human cognition informs the design of your tool in the first project? Because I can imagine that children's at different age, they all have very different cognitive abilities. And then the children's like developmental psychology already talk about at different stages, people have different capabilities. So does that help inform the design of your AR tools?
It does. It definitely does. So you said in the first project, so we looked at the literature to see at that age, so the mean age was 4 years old. At that age, how do children learn the rules and learn about what's good and why they should follow the rules and what makes them follow the rules? So we looked into the literature on that. And one of the things we found was that you have to make them understand the cause and effect relationship. And from there, we started, okay, how do you make the cause and effect relationship understandable, but also fun? So that's why we brought in AR, because in the literature, again, in the AR literature, it shows that children are really instantly engaged with AR technology, so we can get the engagement. And also cause and effect by using a puppet. That's where we brought in the puppet. And we also made sure that the children formed a tight relationship with the puppet, because if it's a puppet, like just sitting on the ground, they're not gonna care as much, right? And also, like, for example, on our deep learning model for solving math word problems, we looked at the literature on how humans solve math word problems. And that's where we got the ideas for our framework. So that's how we address the problems.
I know it's 2:30, already 2:31. So let's maybe have a round